So the 2025 NBA trade deadline has officially passed, and it was one of the craziest trade deadlines in recent memory, to say the least. It ended up being spurred by one of the biggest trades, not only in NBA history, but also sports history. And because of that, I wanted to come on here and give my grades, for some of the biggest trades that happened during the deadline. So yeah, guys, before we do get things started, of course, go ahead and hit that like button if you guys end up enjoying the video, since it really does help out the channel. And of course, subscribe if you guys are new and you guys enjoy content like this. That way you don't miss out on any new videos like the one you're watching right now. But without further ado, let's just go ahead and get this thing started. Alright, we're going to start things off with the trade that pretty much started it all, and the one that I alluded to in the beginning. That, of course, being the Luka Doncic trade to the Lakers. So for context, the Lakers got Luka Doncic, Maxi Kleber, and Markieff Morris, while the Mavericks got Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and a 2029 first-round pick. And the Jazz, they also got into this deal, and they got Jalen Hood-Schifino and 2 second-round picks in 2025. But because I'm only going over the major players, I'm really only going to look at the Lakers and Mavs side of things. And the Lakers, they get an A+ to say the least. I mean, I don't know how, but they somehow ended up with a 25-year-old superstar player who's a top 3 to 5 player in the NBA when healthy, and he was thought to be untouchable. I mean, even a week later, more than a week later, I don't know how the Lakers ended up with Luka Doncic. Like, the words can't even describe how surprised I am, that Luka got traded. I'm pretty sure you guys are all thinking the same, and I mean, honestly, the Lakers, this was just a home run trade for them. I mean, yes, they did give up Anthony Davis, and Anthony Davis is obviously an extremely good player. He is an all-NBA level guy, and we'll see how good this team is in the short term, because even though they got Luka, this team is not perfect. However, I think they will still be a very good team in the short term, and I think this team in the long term is absolutely set, and I think the long-term returns is really what makes this trade so good for LA, because even after LeBron retires, Luka, he's turning just 26 this year, and given how good he is and how big of a market LA is, the Lakers can easily land another star in an offseason where they have a lot of cap space, and as long as they get Luka a co-star and a solid supporting cast and a good head coach, pretty much just the formula you need to win a championship, this team is going to be in the title hunt with Luka at the helm, for the foreseeable future. Now, I will say, the Lakers are absolutely cooked when it comes to their big spots, because Jackson Hayes is they're really only he's the only center on the roster, I think. I mean, either way, Jackson Hayes is their starting center, which is not a very good thing, and they were supposed to trade for Mark Williams, but that ended up getting rescinded because he failed, his physical and whatnot. But in my opinion, this trade will be worth it, for the Lakers. Now, for the Mavs, they get an F- to say the least. I mean, I don't even know what to say. I mean, Anthony Davis, like I said before, is an all-NBA level player, and even Max Christie is a solid role player, but trading Luka is extremely fucking stupid, to say the least. I mean, the Mavericks, they're going to be good in the short term. I think a lot of people kind of overlook that. Like, Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis, along with the, pretty good role players like the Mavericks have, and Jason Kidd, who's not that bad of a head coach, that is a pretty good team. They will be good in the short term, but I don't know if the Mavericks are contenders anymore, because even though they are a good team, I don't know if Kyrie or AD are capable of being a number 1 option on a championship level team. And in the long term, the Mavs are even more screwed, because Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving, for as good as they are, they're in their early 30s. So, who knows how much longer, the Mavericks, how much longer those guys are going to be playing, at these all-star to all NBA levels, and, who knows how long, the Mavericks, quote unquote, title/win now window is going to be open. Nico Harrison, he said that he believes that defense wins championships, and he was concerned about Luka's conditioning, and that's why he traded Luka Doncic. But I mean, me personally, the Mavericks are just morons, to put it simply, and I think damn near everybody's going to agree with that, even Dallas Mavericks fans. I mean, Dallas Mavericks fans, they're absolutely pissed off, to say the least, and I don't really blame them. I would be pissed off too. And honestly, one thing I will say, if you're a Mavericks fan and you chose to switch teams after this, I can't totally blame you, because personally, I might consider doing the same, you know, if I were you. But that's pretty much all I gotta say about this. Now the next trade we got, and I guess you could say like the second biggest trade, that is Jimmy Butler to the Golden State Warriors. And I mean, this one wasn't too surprising. I think we kind of all expected Jimmy to get traded, but anyways, for context, the Warriors got Jimmy Butler, 2 second-round picks from the Heat, along with some cash. The Heat, they got Andrew Wiggins, Kyle Anderson, and Davion Mitchell, along with the 2025 protected first-round pick from the Warriors. Then the Jazz, Pistons, and Raptors kind of all got in on the trade, and the Jazz, they got Josh Richardson and KJ Martin, along with 2 second-round picks and cash from the Heat. Then the Pistons, they got Lindy Waters and Dennis Schroeder, and a second-round pick as well. And the Raptors, lastly, they got PJ Tucker and a second-round pick along with some cash. But I'm really only going to be going over the Warriors and the Heat. For the Warriors, I'm giving them a B+. The Warriors really needed a second option and star player next to Stephen Curry. And as the deadline approached, you know, they really got desperate and kind of just started calling, you know, every single team, you know, and for like every single All-Star to see their availability. In fact, they even tried trading for Kevin Durant, but Kevin Durant pretty much shut that down. But anyways, you know, Jimmy Butler, you know, I think this trade is not too bad for the Warriors. I mean, yeah, Jimmy is old and he definitely has his gripes. Like, you know, he's not a very good three-point shooter. He can coast in the regular season, and along with that, I do think he can be a bit of a head case. But with that said, Jimmy Butler, he does give the Warriors a good second option. I do think he does make this team better, you know. I think before this, they were like, you know, a mediocre play-in team that would be like a first-round exit at best if they somehow made it into the playoffs. But with Jimmy Butler, I think this team should definitely make the playoffs, and they definitely could win a playoff series, maybe 2. And you know, and along with that, they also got him at a much lower price than usual because Miami, you know, didn't really have much leverage in this situation. And yeah, you had to give up Andrew Wiggins, which kind of sucks. But with that said, even with the lack of leverage the Heat had, you did have to give up at least like one major piece to acquire Jimmy. And honestly, I think it was kind of worth it. I mean, the Warriors, after this, they also did extend him for 2 years and $121 million. And some people are critical of this since they don't think he's worth that $60 million a year. And me personally, I don't think he's worth $60 million a year either. But to be fair to them, it's only 2 years, so I don't think it's the worst thing. And overall, I think this is a solid trade for the Warriors. For the Heat, I'm going to give them a B+ as well. I mean, fans were almost certain that Jimmy was going to get traded in, you know, like I said before, and it was basically just a matter of time. And Miami, like I said before also didn't have much leverage, which did reduce how much they could have gotten. But considering their lack of leverage, I think they got a pretty solid return. I think Miami now is still like a play-in level team. They definitely could make the playoffs. I am interested to see how their, you know, future is in the post-Jimmy Butler era and how they choose to handle it. Because, I mean, they can go in a variety of directions. Like, they could choose to do, like, you know, a full-on rebuild. They could also just choose to do, like, a mini retool and try to land a star in the future. Or maybe somebody like Tyler Hero emerges as their franchise guy. But either way, you know, I think the Heat, you know, this trade for them, yeah, it could have been a little bit better. But again, considering their lack of leverage, I think they got a decent return for him. The next trade we got is De'Aaron Fox going to the San Antonio Spurs. In this trade, the Spurs, they got De'Aaron Fox and Jordan McLaughlin. The Kings, they got Zach LaVine and Sidy Cissoko, along with a 2025 protected first-round pick via the Hornets, a 2027 first-rounder via the Spurs, and a 2031 first-rounder via the Wolves, along with 3 second-round picks. The Bulls also got in on this trade, and they got, you know, Zach Collins, Kevin Huerter, Trey Jones, and a 2025 first-round pick. For the San Antonio Spurs, I'm giving them an A+. I mean, the Spurs, they were the top destination for De'Aaron Fox, and they were his preferred number 1 destination. And grabbing an all-star to all-NBA level point guard in De'Aaron Fox was going to be a very big boost for this team. And, you know, that's exactly what De'Aaron Fox is. I think De'Aaron Fox is a really good fit on San Antonio, and in my opinion, the Spurs, they kind of got their star duo of the future, you know, moving forward with Victor Wembanyama and De'Aaron Fox. And honestly, if San Antonio can build around Wemby and Fox well, they should be contenders in just like a year or 2. I mean, the best part is for the Spurs, they really didn't have to give up many of their, like, you know, big young players. Like, yeah, they did have to give up some first-round picks, but I mean, honestly, you did have to give up, you know, something kind of major, you know, in order to acquire De'Aaron Fox. And I mean, it was 100% worth it. I mean, just a very good trade for San Antonio. For the Kings, I'm going to give them like a C+. You know, at first, I didn't hate this deal for Sacramento, but I mean, now that I think about it, I really feel like it could have been a little bit better. I mean, I feel like the Kings could have gotten back, you know, more pick-wise, because that Charlotte first round pick, it is lottery protected, and it can become like 2 second-round picks, you know, I believe if it falls in the lottery. But, you know, either way, you know, I was hoping that they could get, you know, more, you know, pick-wise. And they also did get some win now pieces in return for De'Aaron Fox, you know, in Zach LaVine, because Zach LaVine, yeah, he is worse than De'Aaron Fox, but, you know, he does fit that bill of being a win now piece. And, you know, Sacramento, I mean, in my opinion, I feel like they really should have just gotten, you know, just more picks. I feel like they should have gotten some of the Spurs young players, like, you know, Stephon Castle or maybe Keldon Johnson, you know, etc. I feel like they should have gotten, like, you know, younger pieces for a possible rebuild, you know, because this current Kings team, yeah, they aren't terrible, but I don't know that they're they also aren't very good. Like, they're pretty mid. So that's what I got to say for the Kings. For the Chicago Bulls, I'm going to give them like a B-. Zach LaVine, he was balling, and given his performance, on face value, it might seem like the Bulls got like a very lackluster package, you know, for him. However, I think the reason why, you know, the package was like, you know, kind of lackluster is because of Zach LaVine's contract. And yeah, the Chicago did wait too long to trade him, but hindsight is 2020, and, you know, the past is the past. And while I don't think any of the players they got back will be major guys for them in the future, they at least got their own first round pick back, which is pretty nice. After that, we got Brandon Ingram heading to the Toronto Raptors. In this trade, the Raptors, they got Brandon Ingram, while the Pelicans got Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, and then a first round pick, and then a second round pick. For the Raptors, I'm giving them a C. I mean, I need to ask what the Raptors' plan is, because this year they've been horrible, and given the fact that we're approaching like the All-Star break and how good of a draft this will be, I feel like the Raptors should have just focused on tanking. I mean, they're also like a young team too. I mean, Brandon Ingram, he's good, but I don't really think he elevates this team, you know, that much into being like a play-in or playoff level squad. And Toronto, they got like a little bit of a logjam now at the forward spots. I mean, they could definitely move like RJ Barrett to the 2. I think that is doable. Maybe they even move on from someone like RJ Barrett. I mean, I don't know if they'll do that, but either way, you know, I'm just not feeling this trade right now. Maybe in the long term it does work out, and I'm gonna assume that they re-sign him to a long-term deal since he is a free agent this offseason. But I mean, I don't know. I didn't really like this trade, you know, for the Raptors. For the Pelicans, I'm giving them like a C+, I guess. You know, the Pelicans, you know, they needed to trade Brandon Ingram, I will say that, and they did lack leverage, so their return really wasn't amazing by any means. And I don't know how long Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk are going to be a part of this team. I don't think it's going to be for very long. But it is nice that they got a first-round pick, which was a 2026 first-round pick via the Pacers, by the way. It is top 4 protected, but I'd imagine they get that pick. And again, it could have been more, but they at least got something, and something is better than nothing. The second last trade we got is DeAndre Hunter going to the Cavaliers. In this trade, the Cavs, they got DeAndre Hunter, while the Hawks got Karis LeVert and Georges Niang, along with 3 second-round picks and 2 second-round pick swaps. For the Cavs, I'm giving them an A+. I mean, DeAndre Hunter this year has been like really good. He was a 6th Man of the Year candidate, and he was playing very well for the Hawks. The Cavs, their top 4 players, as we know, are absolutely amazing. They are all at the bare minimum, lower level, all-star level players. And, you know, they're obviously a very good team, but, you know, that 3 spot has kind of always been a bit of a question mark and revolving door this year. But now that they got DeAndre Hunter, I think they got a full, you know, I think that they got a firm answer, you know, when it comes to that small forward spot. And he's a really good 3-and-D forward. And, you know, yeah, giving up Karis LeVert kind of sucked. But outside of that, the Cavaliers, they really didn't give up that much to acquire DeAndre Hunter, and I think this was a really good trade for them. But for the Atlanta Hawks, I'm giving them a D. I really don't know what the Hawks were doing with this deal. I mean, it really does seem like they wanted to be sellers at the deadline since they also did trade Bogdan Bogdanovic. However, they traded DeAndre Hunter for like a sandwich and chips. I mean, like I said before, Karis LeVert is like the only valuable piece they got, and I really feel like the Hawks could have just gotten more for DeAndre Hunter. So, I mean, this was just, in my opinion, just a really bad trade for them. And the final deal we got is the Bucks acquiring Kyle Kuzma. In this trade, the Bucks, they got Kyle Kuzma and Jericho Sims along with like 2 second-round picks. Meanwhile, the Wizards, they got Chris Middleton, AJ Johnson, and a 2028 first-round pick swap. Then the Knicks and the Spurs, they got in on this trade. They got DeLon Wright, the draft rights to this guy named Hugo Benson, and some cash. And then the Spurs, they got Patrick Baldwin Jr. and some cash. But I'm really only going to go over the Bucks and Wizards sides of things. For the Wizards, the Bucks, I mean, I'm giving them a C-. I mean, I understand trading Chris Middleton since he is old and injury prone, and he's also not the guy that he once was. But Kyle Kuzma, he's been pretty bad this year, and I don't know how impactful he's really going to be for this team. Part of me really just feels like they could have just gotten someone else, you know, if they were to trade Chris Middleton, and, you know, someone who would have just been more impactful for Kyle Kuzma, you know, more impactful than Kyle Kuzma. Now, maybe he can turn things around, because Kyle Kuzma, I will say, even though he has been bad this year, in like previous seasons with the Wizards, he hasn't been that terrible. But I gotta be honest, right now, I'm just not a big fan of this trade for the Milwaukee Bucks. For the Wizards, I'm gonna give them like a B-. Washington, in hindsight, really could have gotten, you know, they really should have traded him earlier, but, you know, like I said before, it is better late than never, and they at least got something. You know, Chris Middleton, I don't think he's going to be staying on this team for very long, and he's probably going to be flipped in the future for some assets. But Andre Jackson Jr., I mean, he's a young player who I guess could turn into something down the line. And they did get a 2028 first-round pick swap, which I guess is pretty cool. So, I mean, yeah, it's, you know, not, you know, an amazing return for the Wizards. But, I mean, again, like I said before, something is better than nothing. But that's pretty much all I gotta say for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. It really does mean a lot to me. Again, make sure you guys hit that like button and you guys do subscribe. And then check me out on social media. The links to my Twitter, yes, I still call it Twitter. I'm not calling that shit X. The links to that and then my Instagram are in the description below. But without further ado, I'm out, you guys.